starts with you, only you. A cosmic dance, the truth so true. From the ether to the earthly plane, all you seek, you can attain. The quantum flow, the light you hold, creates the story that will unfold. Every thought and step you make, the universe is yours to take. It starts with you, the mirror's hue, infinite skies reflecting you. From the void, you birth the light. Through the shadows, your soul takes flight. The winds will shift, its timeless bend. Every cycle begins again. Your energy builds, it flows, it streams, aligning rims, igniting your dream. Each vibration, each sacred sound, a universe moves resound. You are the spark, divine and true, illuminating. It's all you do. Just remember, it starts with you, the mirror's hue, infinite skies reflecting you. From the void, you birth the light. Through the shadows, your soul ignites. The path within, the path divine. Through space, your world aligns. Every rise, every fall, you're connected to it all. It starts with you, the quantum view, manifesting dreams like the morning dew. From the stillness, creation flows. Through the darkness, your spirit moves. It starts with you, only you. Through dimension, through the veil, the sacred truth, and you prevail. Now infinite, clear, and true, this road ahead, it's made for you. It all begins and ends with you. Even the chaos, through the flame, you rise anew, never the same. Every heartbeat, every sign weaves your essence, soaring high. The cosmos bends to your command. Creation blooms within your hand. It starts with you, only you, only you. It starts with you.
Welcome in the space family. Happy, what today is? Tuesday. Come in and hold space with us for a little while as we go on this journey of unfolding. We're going to get the disclosures on the way. I share my own experience on my journey to healing. I am a certified life coach, and my mission is simple: to restore the knowledge of self rooted in balance, truth, justice, reciprocity, and divine knowing within me. The beautiful thing is you don't have to abandon everything that you've been taught to receive what's available. Access is already within you. Now, let me remind you of something powerful, and I quote, "The works that you see me do, you can also do in even greater works than these." How can we do these works, Ty, you ask? By gaining the power from within. So while you're waiting on Jesus, lend me your meantime. Because if you don't recognize your responsibility in this process, everything you do is useless. So if it don't apply, let it fly. If some apply and some don't, eat the meat and spit out the bones. If it all applies, eat it all and apply the knowledge. Topic tonight: favor ain't fair. We're going to be here for a short time, hopefully not a long time. It depends on what we feel, but we're going to set some intentions as we start to unpack this tonight. So take a deep breath with me as we go on this journey of unfolding tonight. And as you breathe, notice yourself for a moment. Notice what's been heavy, what's been exhausting. What are you carrying? Notice where you've been trying to make something happen, where you've been wondering, why not me? Why do they seem like they favored and why am I not? What do they have that I don't? Don't judge that. Don't fix it. Don't explain it. Just notice it for now. Take another deep breath with me. As we unpack this tonight, notice how much energy you spent trying to be accepted, trying to be chosen, trying to belong, trying to fit into places and systems and environment that may have never been designed for you to fit in the first place. Breathe again and let it settle. Because tonight is not just about jealousy. Tonight is about it's not about who got the promotion, the blessing, the house, the husband, the wife, the platform, or the opportunity. Tonight is about awareness and access. Tonight is about recognizing what happens when you spend your entire life searching for favor outside of yourself, searching for approval, searching for validation and permission, searching for the seat at somebody else's table. And as you breathe tonight, become open to the possibilities. What if the issue is, or was never, that favor skipped you, but that you've been looking for something, looking for it in places and spaces where you were never designed to fit? So tonight we set the intention to know who we are and to stop looking for favor in places that cannot give what we need to be in alignment with on our own. And in this, we understand that what's mine starts with me, and what's yours starts with you. And so it is. Hotel. Welcome into this space, family. Happy Tuesday. We're going to be unpacking the topic tonight of favor ain't fair. And for those of you that are new coming into the space, my name is Tyson Matawi, and I welcome you into the space where it starts with you, where there's no shame, blame, or judgment. However, we do hold ourselves and one another accountable. So we're going to be holding space tonight, and it gets to be a bit different over here. And by now we should be familiar with Ty. We don't just repeat information, but we slow down enough to observe several things. So come and let's hold space together. And if something comes up for you while you're here, you can put it in the chat. If you don't feel comfortable with it, send it to my inbox and we'll hold space on it on your behalf. And we'll keep you anonymous. So let's get into it. Topic again tonight is favor ain't fair. But before we go there, let's recap where we left off last week. Last week, we asked a very important question. Will God judge me? If only God can judge me. And by the end of that conversation, we discovered that judgment was not just punishment, but revelation and examination. Judgment was revealing what you were producing, the fruit, the relationships, and the consequences of your evidence. Welcome in. Thank you. The scales were there to weigh what our lives were producing. They're there every day as we look out into our lives and see what's showing up. And it's not merely what we claim to believe. And that brings us directly into tonight's conversation. But if life is constantly revealing what we've been producing, and we can know the unseen things from the things that are seen, if our lives are constantly producing the same most repetition of what we've been experiencing all these years, we should start having more questions. You should have more questions. We should stop accepting just anything. And Ty's going to ask them on our behalf tonight. Why are some people producing more than others? Why do some environments seem to support growth while others don't? What soil am I planting my seeds in? Because if I truly have favor, like we say we do, why does growth seem effortless in one place and impossible in another? Now, before you start answering these questions, your own text tells you, and it gives you all of these clues, and it tells you all of these things that we hold so tightly to. And it tells you why these things happen. Look, it says, for your seeds, some of them fell amongst the thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. The worries of life and the deceitfulness of wealth choke this word out, making it unfruitful. Now notice something. The problem is not the seed. It wasn't the mindset that I'm broken or I'm cursed or I'm rejected. The problem was the environment, the soil, the conditions, the relationship between the seed and where it was planted. And we're going to be looking at these things metaphysically tonight. And I know y'all don't like when I say that word, but I'd say it anyway. And I say it with my chest. In other words, the seed represents the potential, the consciousness, the possibility. The seed represents what you could become. The soil represents the environment. Favor is not preference. Favor is balance. Favor is not you a pick me. Favor is what happens when you're in the right relationships with nature. Topic tonight, favor ain't fair. Family, we're challenging what we've been saying for years. But what if favor is fair? And we were taught to look the other way while they tell us it is. Come on. Thank you for sharing that. I got to give you a heart on that. If the slave and the slave master was praying to the same God, whose prayers got answered? Put it in the chat. We're challenging what we've been saying for years. We're doing that. What if the people who appear to have favor are simply operating in alignment with something the rest of us have ignored? Because favor isn't fair to people who are out of balance. Favor isn't fair to people who are disconnected from themselves. Favor isn't fair to people who are operating against their own nature. And that's what we're going to be unpacking tonight. So what is favor, Ty? Because one thing that I learned is we have to go back to the basics. We have to understand what these words mean, because we just take them and we use them, not even recognizing that they have power. And they know if they can control the definitions, they'll control the conversation, they'll control your mindset. We were taught favor means God picked me. God likes me more. God blesses me. God chose me. But what if favor is much deeper than that? Welcome in. What if favor supports alignment and balance? What if favor is homeostasis? We unpacked that last week. The body's mind and spirit ability to regulate itself. The ability of this thing to function according to its nature. Now I know what you're saying, and I know what you're thinking. Language. Thank you for sharing that. Language. I know what we're thinking. God loves me because the Bible tells me so. It told me that since I was a child. I know that's what we're thinking. Hello. Welcome in. Put it in the chat where you're from. Miss Gwen. Thank you for Lorenzo sharing that. So let's slow down tonight. Shout out to Kentucky. You have been given God. We have been given God these human characteristics. Why do you say that, Ty? We're so quick to put he, him, his, like it's a. We're talking about God like it's an old man somewhere sitting up in the sky making decisions, picking out people and picking out favorites, handing out blessing, rewarding some people, punishing others. But what if God isn't a person that, that way that you've been taught? Shout out. Peace. What if God is the energy that uses matter to express itself? Through nature, through consciousness, through you. And if that's true, then favor isn't God picking people. Favor is what happens when life is allowed to flow unobstructed. Family, let's go back to the seed just for a second. What if this seed that we unpack is the favor? The seed of favor is relationship and alignment, it's intimacy with your nature. Because whatever you are intimate with shapes what you become. Which is why the soil matters, why your identity matters. This is why your knowledge of self matters. You got them to sell? Put them in the chat. Because a seed planted in the wrong environment, I guarantee you're going to struggle. And this is why we're having so many issues right now, struggling because the soil cannot support what it's trying to become. And one of the biggest contradiction is people, say that they have faith. You say that you have all these things. I have faith. All I need is a faith of a mustard seed. We say all these things, but we refuse to do the work. Even your text says that faith without work is dead. In other words, belief without participation produces nothing. You can't pray for health while violating the conditions that produce health. You can't pray for peace while feeding chaos. You can't pray for balance while living out of balance. Then call the outcome a lack of favor. Think about that. The body is constantly trying to return to its equilibrium, to its homeostasis. The nervous system is constantly trying to regulate itself. The mind is constantly trying to make sense of these things that don't make sense, the things that show up in our reality. Nature is constantly seeking that balance. In Kemet, they call it ma'at, the right relationship. I have such a better appreciation to the allegory of Job's wife. We unpacked last time her name was Sidis. Because while everybody was focused on Job enduring, he got to take it. We got to endure like Job. And that's what y'all set your minds on. We got to take everything like Job because Job did it. But that sister was recognizing something was out of balance. She saw the suffering. She saw the disruption. She saw a system that wasn't created to function properly. And whether you agree with her or not, she becomes a voice of asking. How long can we continue to go along with their program? How long can we continue to put up with what they give us? Sometimes what's required is action. Sometimes that balance of making people treat you right requires you to speak up. It requires interruption. So, Ty, do I have favor? That's what we're unpacking tonight. And my answer is, examine yourself. You will know the unseen things from the things that are seen. What is showing up in your life? Examine your relationships. Examine your thoughts, your habits, your health, your peace. Examine your balance. Because favor leaves evidence. Not just in what you have, but in what you're producing. After thinking about it, maybe one of the biggest lies wasn't that God doesn't love you. Maybe it was convincing you that favor comes from being chosen. It says, choose who you must serve today, he says. Because if I can convince you that favor is outside of you, you'll spend the rest of your life chasing it. What will I be chasing? I want the next blessing, the next approval, the next salvation, the next acceptance. I'll just wait until I'll keep chasing that next time they try. And instead of recognizing that favor may have been built into your nature from the very beginning, whatever you repeatedly planted yourself into eventually shapes what you become. Since I said that, Let me put a pin there. Ladies, I know we're in a new era. And I know that we believe that we can do all the things. And I hear y'all say it all the time. I can do what men do. That the times are changing. It's just sex. I can do the things. Think about this for a moment. It's bigger than sex. And Ty's going to actually have us tap into that tonight. It's about understanding that whatever you repeatedly allow access to you eventually becomes part of what you're producing. Which is why you must be careful with what seeds you allow to take root in your soil. I.e., men that we allow in our bodies. Because every seed does not produce good fruit. And we should know that from our experiences over and over again. And those sessions that we're having, they imprint on our DNA. In other words, you call them soul ties. Family, every seed was not meant to be in your soul. And I repeat that for the people in the back, because the soul is full of fear and shame and guilt and all the low vibrational things. Those things produce something different, and it shows up different. And before you know it, you'll mistake that condition of the soul for the truth of who you are. Thank you, Joe. Which brings us back to tonight. Is favor really unfair? Or have we been trying to grow in soil that keeps choking out what we've been capable of becoming? Because if my life is producing this evidence, then favor should leave this evidence that I should be able to witness. And that's where things can get interesting. Family, all my life I've heard us say this. Favor ain't fair. I get the promotion. Favor ain't fair. They got an opportunity. Favor ain't fair. They got chosen. They got a blessing. Favor ain't fair. And every time I hear it, the assumption is always the same. Somehow God picked them. Somehow God liked them more. Somehow they received something the rest of us didn't or won't get. And that's dangerous because it causes uncertainty, and the brain hates uncertainty. And it wants explanations of why you think that way. It wants patterns. It wants to know why one person got that opportunity and you didn't. So when you hear favor ain't fair, the brain often fills in the blank. I'm not good enough. Notice what happens. We took an outcome and turned it into identity. We took access and turned it into divine preference. And shame starts to show up. And you start comparing yourself. Here comes the envy and the self-doubt. And now your nervous system starts responding as if you're excluded. And when reality may be something much simpler. The difference may not be, your worth that you're questioning. The difference may be environment, relationship. And that's why this conversation matters, because favor isn't just about a religious idea. It's a psychological idea. In the moment you believe you're not one of the favorites, your mind or your body starts acting like such. So tonight I want to offer us a hypothesis. Favor is fair. So let's get ourselves together. Before we assume we understand, let's start from the beginning. I'm going to redefine this thing, and I'm going to unpack it. I'm going to take my time and do so, because I believe that's my business. And I decided to tonight. What determines favor time? Who gets it? Who doesn't? And if God loves everybody the same, why are outcomes so different? And I already know what you're thinking. Ty, my life changed when I accepted the Lord and Savior as my everything. Fair enough. For shits and giggles, we're going to examine that tonight. We're not going to dismiss anything. Because if that's the reason, we should be able to see its fruit. We unpacked that last week. So we're going to be looking at some outcomes. And I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. If accepting Jesus automatically produces favor, why are so many of you still struggling with things? Why are so many of us struggling with fear, self-hatred, broken relationships, financial hardships, and emotional exhaustion? And before somebody says, well, nobody's perfect, it tells us that those storms are going to rise. Okay, I agree. But that's not the question. The question is, what measurable differences is being produced? Because if favor is real, then I should see something opposite of what I'm just unpacking, that fear, those in that emotional exhaustion. I should see something on the opposite. So let's talk about it. Because that's not scripture, whether you know it or not. So where do we get that from? I don't understand why we take their ideas of things and we adopt those narratives. I just don't understand it. Where do we get those things from? You won't find Jesus saying it. You won't find Moses or David saying it's the modern day church. These are the phrases that they give us. And it makes you assume something. It assumes preference. It assumes access, which brings us back to the original meaning. Favor means goodwill. It means support. It means acceptance, special regard, relationship. In other words, favor was never originally about that new car. Favor was never about getting a bigger house or a promotion or a miracle check in the mail. Favor was about being in a relationship that provides support. For example, let me, according to your text, it says Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Moses found favor in his sight. Esther obtained favor in all who all saw her. And the king loved Esther, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight. Mary found favor. Jesus and Joseph had favor. None of them was chasing anything. This alignment with the law of attraction. Because what were they doing? They were operating in relationship, and they were called to do a thing. They had a purpose. In return, favor showed up. I remember back in the day, I used to tell us, become the thing that you're asking for, that you desire, and things will show up for you. I remember telling us that. Pay attention to this. None of them that had favor. Don't get mad at me when I say this. All of the people they talk about favor, not a one of them spoke in tongues and got favor. None of them paid tithes and got favor. Joined a denomination and got favor. None of them attended church on every Sunday or every Wednesday or whenever you go. None of them did that. What I repeatedly see is relationship, purpose, assignment, being known, wisdom. So Ty, what do they all have in common? The answer is simple. They knew who they were. They knew what they were connected to. They knew what they were supposed to be doing. And because they knew who they weren't spending their lives chasing this favor that they sold us. Favor followed them, which is why I've been saying all night tonight, favor is fair. You just have to do the work. We have to put in the work. And part of the work is knowing who you are. So if you want to use the Bible to define favor, then we have to be honest about what these stories actually say. Because one of the most uncomfortable stories in the text involves a woman asking Jesus for help. A Jesus that's favored. And I'm going to put y'all on game tonight. And I'm decided I want to take my time and do this tonight. We're going to unpack this story in this book of magic that they gave you. You can quote the promise, the blessing, you can quote favor, but you never examine the audience. You never examine the context. You never examine who the conversation was actually happening with at that time. And I'm using this allegorically. I don't know about that time. We're going to take a look tonight. Because I know, you won't get it nowhere else but here. There was a Canaanite woman. In this story, the biblical text loves giving y'all women without giving them names. And I don't understand why we don't have questions about this. Why is all these women there? None of them got names. Why do we not have questions about these things? I looked for a name. I couldn't find it. But later Christian traditions, gave her a name as Justa, and her daughter name was Bernice. The woman came out and cried out. She said, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly from a demon possession. He ignored her. Jesus didn't answer a word. And I hope y'all see how we show up in these stories that Ty comes on here and unpacks. So his disciples came to him and urged him, just send her away. Tell her to go on and get. You look good going. So finally he answered. You know what this brother said to her? This Canaanite woman. He said, I ain't fucking with you. They're my words. But he did say, get somebody else to do it. Because I'm only sent here for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. His own people. We're going to catch this later. So she started begging. I seen this yesterday. She started begging. She got on her knees. Don't get mad at me because I'm giving you the story the way it shows up in your text. Your text says she said, got on her knees, started begging and saying, Lord, help me, please. He replied again, it's not right for me to take from my children's bread and toss it to the dogs. He called this lady a dog. Now keep in mind, you don't treat people with favor that way. She said, yes, Lord, but even dogs eat the crumbs that fall off the master's table. We playing. We out here playing. And because of that, he granted her. Immediately, her daughter was healed from that very hour. And if you're telling me that it's that easy for you to do something, that tells me that he was okay with tending to his own people and not worried about yours. I hope y'all see the relevance to this. Family, that's the story, not Ty's interpretation. That's what the text said is his favorite. Before you go and try to explain or defend or acknowledge the lost sheep of house of Israel, that is not you. And he uses that to describe his people before extending help to the Canaanite woman. She was not part of the group. She did not fit in. She was not. So in other words, she was an outsider. She was you. She was us. She didn't have the status, the belonging, the relationship, or the access. Your text says, so from the story perspective, there was a favorite and it was his children. Family, he has priority, just like you have with yours. And that hit home for me because, I was a stepchild. I grew up in other people's environments. And I know from experience what it's like to be treated that way. Where you don't get treated like real children. Because what, Ty? Because you don't have favor. I got punished because I didn't have that favor. I didn't have that access. I had to hide and creep around and be cautious about what I did. Even when they did things wrong. And I would do things right to get acknowledged because I didn't have that favor. It didn't matter. If you've ever been a stepchild, or lived under someone else's roof, or you have a child outside marriage, you can tell who the favorites are when you commingle and you get in a relationship. How can you tell? You know exactly by looking. Pay attention. You'll see it. Take a look around. It's all around us. Now, did it mean that they were better than me? No, and they didn't. It don't. It doesn't mean that you're worthless. But when a child grows up and when they see, other children receiving different treatment and different protection, I'm not just talking about children, I'm talking about adults. It's happened with us too. Different grace, different access. The child or the adult, the relationship is different. Instead of the child concludes, the adult concludes, something must be wrong with me. And the mind begins to create that story. I'm not good enough. And over time, that story gets written into the nervous system, and the child becomes hypervigilant, constantly watching, comparing, and looking for signs of rejection. And this is where that prediction error starts to show up. And we need to start having more of these, because otherwise we're going to get caught up in having the same experiences over and over, doing the same thing, expecting different results. The brain predicts, maybe this time I'll be accepted. Maybe this time they'll do right by us. Maybe this time they'll decide right. Then when the outcome doesn't match the expectation, here comes another disappointment. Here comes confusion and emotional pain. Now, family, watch how religion can operate the same way. It does you the same way. If God is presented to you as your father, but you spend your life believing everybody else is getting the blessings, everybody else getting favor, everybody else is being chosen, the unconscious, you unconsciously start asking the same questions, just like the child with the absent parent. Now you're chasing approval and validation and acceptance. And guess what? Favor. Because you've attached your worth. So now that prediction error says, you have to know what you're doing. Make them chase you. How you know that, Ty? Because I lived it. I seen how it showed up in my life. I know the unseen things. But one thing I can say, and I can be honest and transparent about, welcome in, family. I'm getting different experiences now because I'm doing things different. And one thing I can say about Dr. Simatawi, when it comes to my children, he holds all of their asses accountable. The same way, no favorites, no confusion, no mixed signals. My aunt, balance. And that's why tonight's conversation matters, because maybe favor was never supposed to make you question your worth. Maybe favor was always supposed to reveal how you've been living without balance and who you truly are. Let me give you another example. Oftentimes when I would go to church, I always hear stories about David. And as I start to unpack these things and they start to reveal things and I start to know for myself, I understood that there are favorites. And David had favor with God. How is that tied? I got you. David is chosen as the king while others were passed and looked over. He survived situations that would unalive other people. He committed actions that seemed to receive mercy, where others receive immediate judgment. God makes a covenant with David that his lineage would continue. And David is repeatedly described, and I hear you guys saying it as a man after God's own heart. So we're not going to pretend that David had a clean record, because he didn't. He did all kinds of shit. You know what it's like on the job when you do something, but little Becky can come and do the same thing, but you get in trouble and she don't. That's what we're unpacking. According to the text, he committed adultery with Bathsheba. He arranged for Uriah to be placed where he would unalive. He made major mistakes as king, yet it continues to show, David receiving all of this mercy and favor after favor. Now let's compare that to other people. Uzziah was put in charge with this ark, trying to protect it. He touches it and unalives. Ananias and Sapphira lied, and they unalived because they lied. Moses strikes a rock and loses access to the promised land. And the question becomes, why does David appear to receive grace where others receive immediate consequences? That's a question we've been wrestling with for a really long time. And I've never heard anybody answer that. Because he was favored and he was chosen. Now, if you want to ask, what does the Bible say brings favor? The text gives us a long list. What does it say, Ty? Obedience, wisdom, righteousness, keeping the covenant, following God's commandment, trusting God, walking upright, justice, mercy. And I know what some of y'all thinking, but Ty, after the crucifixion, it was poured out on all flesh. Fair question, fair assessment. But let's examine the text, because before we get into all this flesh that we're talking about, that was for a specific people, a specific covenant, a specific lineage, and a specific audience. This is not Ty saying this. It wasn't talking about you. This text tells us who it was talking about. Welcome in, family. I guess my music that went out on me. Come in and hold space with me tonight as we unpack this topic. Topic tonight, favor ain't fair. The text repeatedly tells you who it was talking to, who the promises were spoken to. Just because you're reading somebody else's mail, don't mean it was addressed to you. Let that sit and marinate just for a minute, because you have spent your lives claiming these promises, claiming these blessings, claiming this favor, without first asking, who was it speaking to? Who is this describing? Who was it for? If it says that it was talking to a specific people and you ain't them, shouldn't we start examining this stuff? My people, we perish for the lack of knowledge. Listen, it says, for the Lord God is a sun and a shield. The Lord bestows favor and honor. No good thing does he withhold from those who walk is blameless. When are we going to start examining this fruit? Because if favor follows those things, and those things are absent, when the biblical text speaks about the house of Israel, it's speaking about a specific people connected to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Israel. And the 12 tribes, my point tonight isn't to prove who the Israelites are. And I know the Hebrew Israelites are getting in the chat and say, well, we are the original people. I know it. That's, we'll unpack that maybe another time. But my point is that Christians assume every promise in the text was written directly to them, and it wasn't. How does that connect to me if we're not one of them? Before we start claiming this favor, family, it's important to understand who they were addressing. What relationship was being described, and what was the promise? What did it originally mean? And one of our biggest flaws is taking this information and mistaking it and reducing this favor to material things. A house can be lost, a car can be repossessed, money can disappear, titles can go. But favor is deeper than possessions. Favor is peace when chaos is available. Favor is clarity when confusion is surrounding you. Favor is balance when life is pulling you in every direction but the right direction. Favor is knowing who you are, where you belong, and what supports your growth. And just so you know, according to the text, the Jewish people are the house of Israel. Those are the people. And let me show you about your favorites. Because when you look at the data and how wealthy they are, it shows up like things like education. Who's in control of that? Who owns the network? Who has the inheritances? Who has the business? Who has ownership? Who has the long-term community investment? And guess who's at the top of that? Our way. Yes. So before we start calling something favor, we should examine what it's what outcomes it's producing. Because if favor were only material, then every wealthy person would be fulfilled, and every poor person would be without it. You know what, family? I can say this honestly, that the greatest favor isn't what you have in your hands. It's what you've established within self. And we've been robbed of that for a long time. And this white supremacy system has stacked the cards against us and gave us religion. They took our land and gave us their book. You want to know the craziest thing? The very people the story was writing about don't even believe in your Jesus. They don't even believe it. Let that marinate for a second. The people Christianity points back to, the people the covenants were supposed to be given to, the people Jesus said was sent here, they reject that. Yet here we are, 2,000 years or more later, arguing, fighting, dividing families, paying tithes, building denominations, and claiming favor through someone else's original audience never accepted. Make it make sense. they sell you the solution. Why would we want to be a part of something like that? Now, before you get mad at Ty, let's look at what happens in the mind because of this. We have a deeper need to belong to the system that they fed us. That certainty, that safety that we feel, the identity, the meaning, when those needs are activated, you will tolerate these things that they're putting us through. When if you had knowledge of yourself, you would reject it. But all because of your fear of being excluded, it becomes stronger than the desire to ask some questions. Why can't we ask questions about this shit that they're giving us? Because we got a fear of losing the idea. And it's become stronger than our desire to examine the belief. Back in the day, you couldn't just feed our people anything. But now today, we have such a fear of punishment. It becomes stronger than even want to know the truth. And your mind automatically has been trained to start protecting that same system. Somebody put it in the chat earlier. How can we pray to the same person that's saying, I want to keep them there. And we're praying to the same person that's asking that prayer. Whose prayer is getting answered? It's not ours. We got to start challenging the system because we are losing. And it feels like love. Because when you try to abandon or try to leave something like that, it feels like something in you is unalived. So your mind is going to say, don't even look. Please don't look at it. Don't tune into Ty. Please don't listen because she's going to say something that may disrupt your spirit. Don't question, just believe because certainty feels safer than uncertainty. And that's what makes tonight's conversation so important to me. Because if favor follows relationship, then before I ask whether I'm favored, I should ask so many other questions. What am I in relationship with? What is producing in me? Is it producing freedom? Is it producing dependency? Is it producing awareness or fear? Because family, whatever you repeatedly submit your mind to eventually shapes how you see yourself. And if a system convinces you that you are inherently lacking, you spend your whole life chasing that favor. We used to sing a song, I've been running for a long time and I ain't got tired yet. When are we going to get tired? I don't know about that. Let me show you. Because if I can convince you that the favor is outside of you, you'll spend your whole life trying to go for those positions, chasing somebody to choose you. And the crazy part is the moment you get one thing, you'll need another. This is why we're never satisfied. It'll never be enough because the hunger never gets satisfied. The thirst never gets quenched. Why? Because the problem was never the favor. The problem was the belief that you were incomplete. I'm going to show you another example. I'm making good time. The allegory of Esau and Jacob. They were fighting over the blessing, the birthright, the favor. One brother spends his life trying to get what belonged to the other. The mother got involved, so there was deception and competition, all because everybody believed there wasn't enough favor to go around. So somebody got to be picked. Somebody got to be chosen. Somebody has to win, which means somebody has to lose. I hope this sounds familiar. Think about that. That's what happens when favor becomes scarce. That's what happens when your worth depends on being selected. Now watch this. The older brother loses the blessing all over some food. Let's not forget how they gave us these narratives without you knowing it. It's a narrative to give you, to get you to see yourself in the world. And if you're not careful, you will inherit this narrative before you ever examine it. They give this to us when we're babies. And now we get to be adults and we have these behaviors and don't even recognize why. Why am I seeing life through these lenses, these yellow colored lenses? It says 2 nations are in the womb. The first came out hairy and red. The second came out grasping his brother's heel. That's what the text says. But watch what happens. And we have the audacity to build identities around that story. We begin choosing sides. Sometimes it ain't even with our own people. We begin attaching ourselves to characters and seeing themselves inside the conflict. And before you know it, the narrative becomes bigger than the lesson. Family, the story begins with division with 2 people. Welcome in, Jay or Jai. 2 people struggling and in competition with one another. Before anybody receives a blessing, before anybody receives favor, before you receive a birthright, conflict is already present. Black man, Black woman, ask yourself, what is happening in my mind when I've been given these narratives? When I've repeatedly been taught these stories of be chosen or not chosen, be blessed or not blessed, be favored or not favored, inside or outsider. Your mind is going to start organizing reality around those characters, those categories. Do I belong here? Which one am I? Am I the chosen or the not? And once that happens, that comparison, scarcity, and competition is born. The fear of not being enough is born. Because if one person gets the blessing, then somebody else lost it. If one person is chosen, then somebody else must not be. And your unconscious mind begins to believe that. It's a trap. It's a trap. Because now you're no longer seeking truth. You're seeking validation. You're seeking proof that you matter. That's why we spend our whole lives on this hamster wheel in the wilderness. Not because you need it, but because you have been taught to associate favor with your worth. You've been taught wrong. And I say that with my chest. You have been taught wrong, going around saying favor ain't fair, when all along teaching, what it's teaching you is favor is fair, is showing you in all these scriptures that y'all take and hold it close to your chest, is teaching you that. That favor that they're talking about, that they give you, was not designed for you. Favor was never supposed to determine whether you mattered or not. Favor was never supposed to determine your worth. The moment your worth depends on their narrative, you'll spend your life fighting. Your brothers, your sisters, your family, your friends. You'll spend your life fighting the system. But the moment you know that you know who you are, the competition begins to disappear because you realize the greatest favor was never about that. The greatest favor is knowledge of self. That's the narrative we were never taught to examine. That's the narrative they don't want you to understand. That's the narrative they want to keep from you. But what if we've been looking backwards this whole time? What if the greatest trick wasn't convincing you that favor exists, but convincing you that favor isn't fair? Because the moment you start believing that, you'll stop examining what really is it. Now you're chasing it. Now you're competing for it. You're getting on your knees praying and begging for it. Because after so long, you begging. And all of it falls on deaf ears. So when somebody gets a promotion or a blessing, somebody gets the attention. This is the psychology of believing you're not enough. And once your worth becomes attached to that, when will we stop chasing these breadcrumbs from somebody else's table? You stop trying to inherit somebody else's identity. You stop trying to force your way into somebody else's story. And you learn your own. And you begin recognizing what's natural, what naturally supports you, what nourishes you, what belongs to you, what brings us back to our favor that's fair to us. We've been taught to look for it in all the wrong places. They're going to keep you chasing it forever. Only to you to get to the end and say, I wish. But start learning yourself. Start asking questions so this chase can end. Because you discover what you were looking for. You were never outside of you. It was never outside of you to begin with. That is the greatest favor that we can know. Because if you don't know who you are, somebody else gets to tell you. Somebody else gets to define who you are. Listen, a fish don't ask the water for permission to be a fish. A tree don't ask the soil for permission to be a tree. The sun don't ask you for permission to shine. Ra will shine. How do you know this is true? We see it in creation. It keeps showing us that. Our ancestors studied nature. They didn't just worship it, they observed it. They learned from it because it left clues. You're not going to wake up one day and the sun is confused if I want to shine tonight or not. The Nile doesn't ask for permission to flow. The seed doesn't debate whether it's a seed. It becomes what it already contains. That's one of the deepest teachings of Kemet. To know a thing according to its nature, to be in right relationship with what you are. This is why Ma'at is so important. It wasn't just morality. It was order. It was balance. It was truth and alignment. And what happens when something is aligned with nature? It flourishes. And when it's disconnected, it struggles. We are a disconnected people. And I don't want to hear because it's cursed. But because it's operating against itself, that's favor. Now let's bring it back to Jesus. How can we say he knew who he was? That's why. The before the miracles, the crowds, before the followers. He consistently speaks as someone who knows what his assignment is. At 12 years old, he says, did you know? Did you not know that I must be about my Father's business? That's purpose. 12. Later he said, I will send only to the lost sheep of Israel. Again, not confusion, assignment. Then he says, I can do nothing on my own. I seek not my own will, but the will of him who sent me. Notice the language. Somebody else put it in the chat earlier. Language. He kept referring to being sent, having purpose, having a mission, knowing what he was there to do. Family, whether you believe he was the Son of God, a prophet, a teacher, an allegory, the character in the story repeatedly operates from identity and knowing who he is. People questioned him. Religious leaders challenged him. Crowds misunderstood him. Even his own followers struggled to understand him, yet he kept returning. Who sent him? What he was sent to do? Who he was sent to? That's why I say he know, according to the allegory, he knew who he was. Because a person who doesn't know who they are is usually trying to do everything and be everything and show up as everybody else. They constantly seek approval, constantly changing identity, constantly putting on a mask, looking outside of themselves for direction. This was showing us a principle. I made good time. I actually finished really quick tonight, but I'm going to get out of here in just a minute. But as I close, I'm here being honest. And I've been bothered by something of past few days, and it just didn't sit right with me. Not because I'm surprised, but because I'm seeing things more clearly. And the crazy part is we shouldn't be surprised about what shows up in these spaces. We shouldn't be shocked when a system produces exactly what it was designed to produce. We shouldn't be shocked when people operate according to the conditioning they've inherited. We shouldn't be. We shouldn't be shocked when that same outcome keeps showing up in the same places. Because all night I've been talking about the relationship, the alignment, the access, the identity. And once you understand those things, a lot of what looks random starts to look predictable. We should be able to see their patterns. And what starts to look unfair starts looking, this had to be by design. A lot of what looks surprising starts looking like evidence. So when we start hearing those stories, like the Carmelo Anthony's, when we start hearing those stories like the Cyrus story, rest in power, and the countless others, different name, different circumstances, same questions. How long are we going to wait for somebody else to recognize our humanity? How long are we going to wait for somebody else to determine our worth? How long are we going to keep chasing favor from systems that have been that never taught us who we are? That's why this conversation matters. It isn't just attitude. It's a system that touches economics, education, entertainment, labor, the law, politics, religion, sex, war, family. If a system reaches into every major area of our lives, why are we surprised when the outcomes keep looking familiar? Why are we shocked when the same patterns keep repeating themselves? Why are we still expecting favor from the same systems we depended on for generations that were that prediction era keeps showing us? We keep expecting salvation from the very thing that's producing our suffering. We keep expecting them to validate us. And we know all they show us is rejection. We keep expecting favor from the very thing that keeps us disconnected from ourselves. And then we get shocked when the outcome doesn't match the expectation. Family, that's not a lack of faith. That's a misunderstanding of where favor comes from. My aunt would never turn the other cheek when it's unlawful. They told you to turn the other cheek, but they don't. They pew-pew you down in the streets, but they don't teach you about the same balance. They teach you how to be obedient, but they disobey it every chance they get. They tell you to wait, but they do the work, and they get it done. They tell you to look up in the sky while they're taking advantage of theirs now. The greatest threat to any system built on dependency is a people who have no knowledge of self. Thank you for sharing the live. Because once you know who you are, you're going to stop all that begging. You're going to stop needing their system and their permission. We have the strongest spending dollar out here, yet we still allow it. They tell you to wait. When is enough going to be enough? You know what I know? That Willie Lynch letter, I unpacked this before. Welcome here, family. That Willie Lynch letter that I read, he said for hundreds of years, their children's children, and for generations to come, it will still be affecting them. That wasn't a lie. For hundreds of years, thousands of years, this has affected us. And before I leave here tonight, I have one final question. Not for the pastor, not for the politician, not for the system or the church, not for the people you spent your life waiting to be recognized. Not for them. The question is for us, Black man, Black woman. When will we find favor in ourselves? When will we find favor in ourselves? When will you stop waiting for somebody else to validate your existence? When will you stop waiting for somebody else to tell you that you matter? When will you stop waiting for somebody else to tell you that you're worthy? Ty, when does that happen? I'll answer that for you. When you recognize who you are. It happens the moment you stop looking outside of yourself for what's already within you. That's why I love it starts with you, because it tells you don't look out here. And it says, is it not written in your law that ye are gods? And whether you want to take that spiritually, symbolically, metaphysically, the point still remains. God does not spend its life begging for permission to exist. God does not spend its life asking other people to define it. God does not spend its life living beneath what it is. The original man, the original woman, the original source, the original expression of life itself. That's why I've been spending months saying God is dead. Not because life is dead, not because consciousness is dead, not because creation is dead, but because the version of God that they gave us that we adopted and we allow ourselves to continuously follow. We found contentment in that. And it's no longer surviving the examination. The God of fear, dependency, the God that keeps you small, that keeps you taking it. The one that keeps you waiting until you transition to see it. The God dies the moment awareness is born. That one that they gave you. And when I say that, I'm not talking about when we recognize who we are. I'm talking about the illusion that you are powerless, the illusion that you are separated, the illusion that your worth must be given to you by somebody else, that they get to dictate how valuable your black body is. And I'm going to say, because the greatest favor was never been chosen. The greatest favor is for you waking up, family. My black sister, my black brother, the greatest favor is you remembering who you are. And Ty is here to remind us every week. Of who we are. The greatest favor is knowing thyself, ma'at. When will enough be enough for you? And once you know yourself, we're going to stop searching. We're going to stop having all these issues. We're going to stop waiting. That begging, that illusion. We're going to go back and we're going to say it all starts with us. The original man, the black woman. After all of that, I'm going to have to say, and so it is. That's going to be it for me, family. I got on here in Hell's Space for a little while. Actually, I finished pretty quickly. Thank you guys for coming in, holding space with us tonight. On It Starts With You. I'm going to bid you guys a good night. So I'm going to get out of here. Hotep.